Greetings to everyone. Blessed be the name of God. From today on, we are returning to the reading of the book of Genesis. Perhaps the listeners will wonder why Job was read in the middle of the reading of the book of Genesis. Job was a contemporary of Abraham. While Abraham lived in Canaan, Job lived in the land of Uz, in another corner of the Middle East, who knew God, who received much grace from God, and who went through various demonic trials. That's why it happened to read the book of Job in the meantime. Today's reading is from Genesis chapter 12 to 15. In Genesis 12, God calls Abram to leave his country, family, and father's house to a land he will show him. God promises to Abram into a great nation, blessing him and making his name great. Abram obeys and travels to Canaan with Sarai and Lot. Due to famine, he goes to Egypt, where he fears for his life and calls Sarai his sister. Pharaoh takes Sarai, but God afflicts Pharaoh's house, leading to Abraham's release. Abraham leaves Egypt with wealth. This chapter highlights the beginning of Abraham's journey of faith. It also shows both his obedience and human weakness. This chapter teaches that God's call requires faith and separation. Abraham's obedience without knowing the destination reflects total trust in God. God's promise shows that blessings are not only personal but meant to bless others. Abraham's failures in Egypt remind us that even faithful people struggle with fear, yet God remains faithful despite human weakness. God's grace protects His plan even when we falter. Faith is a journey, not perfection. Today, believers are called to step out in faith even without full clarity. Like Abraham, we may face fear and uncertainty, but God's promises remain sure. Trusting God may require leaving comfort zones. Even when we fail, God sustains us. Our lives should be a blessing to others. Faith involves both obedience and growth. God works through imperfect people to fulfill His purpose. In Genesis 13, Abraham returns from Egypt to Canaan with great wealth. Conflict arises between Abraham's and Lot's herdsmen due to limited resources. Abraham humbly offers Lot the first choice of land. Lot chooses the fertile Jordan Valley near Sodom. Abraham remains in Canaan. God reaffirms the promise, telling Abraham to look in every direction, promising the land to his descendants. Abraham settles near Hebron and builds an altar. This chapter highlights separation and divine reassurance. Abraham demonstrates humility, peacemaking, and trust in God. He does not fight for advantage but relies on God's promise. Lot chooses based on sight, while Abraham walks by faith. This contrast shows the difference between worldly and spiritual decisions. God honors those who trust Him. Separation sometimes comes necessary for peace. Faith leads to deeper assurance from God. In life, conflicts can arise even among close people. Choosing peace over possession reflects spiritual maturity. Decisions based only on outward appearances can lead to trouble. Trusting God brings lasting blessings. We are reminded to depend on God rather than compete with others. Humility opens doors for divine favors. God sees and rewards our faith choices. In Genesis 14, war breaks out between kings in the region. Lot is captured during the conflict. Abraham gathers 1,300 trained men and rescues Lot. After victory, Abraham meets Melchizedek, king of Salem, who blesses him. Abraham gives him a tenth of everything. The king of Sodom offers Abraham the spoils, but Abraham refuses to take anything. He insists that God alone should receive the credit for his prosperity. This chapter shows Abraham as a man of courage and integrity. Abraham's rescue of Lot shows love and responsibility. Melchizedek represents a priestly figure pointing to divine blessing. Abraham's tithe reflects gratitude and acknowledgement of God's sovereignty. His refusal of wealth shows detachment from worldly gain. True faith values God's glory over material benefit. Victory comes from God, not human strength. Faith leads to righteous actions and generosity. We are called to stand for others in times of need. Success should not lead to pride, but gratitude to God. Integrity matters more than material gain. Giving back to God reflects our trust in Him. We must choose to honor God over worldly rewards. Courage and faith go hand in hand. God blesses those who walk in righteousness. In Genesis 15, God speaks to Abraham in a vision, assuring him that he will have a son and countless descendants. Abraham expresses concern about being childless. God takes him outside and shows him the stars as a symbol of his future offsprings. Abraham believes in God, and it is counted to him as righteousness. God makes a covenant with Abraham, promising the lands to his descendants. A solemn covenant ceremony takes place. God foretells the future suffering and deliverance of Abraham's descendants. This chapter emphasizes faith and covenant. Faith is counted as righteousness before God. Abraham trusts God beyond human possibility. God's covenant shows unchanging promises. Even delay in fulfillment does not mean denial. God reveals both blessing and trials ahead. Faith involves trusting God's timings. Relationship with God is based on faith, not work. Believers today are called to trust God even when the answers are delayed. Faith in God's promises brings righteousness. Life may include struggles, but God's plans will prevail. God's timing is perfect even when we do not understand it. Trusting God gives hope for the future. We are part of God's greater plan. Faith sustains us through uncertainty. Points to ponder. Am I willing to trust God even when I do not see the full picture? Do I choose worldly advantage like Lot or spiritual faith like Abraham? May God bless you all. Amen.